anexestatos bios ubiotos anthropo. That's what Plato wrote in his dialogue, The Apology. It's the famous quotation, "The unexamined life is not worth living." You know, the square of opposition is really a useful tool, and it can help us sort through some of the confusing thoughts that we may have. It can help us see when we're holding thoughts that may be contradictory. And it can help us to, to avoid making embarrassing statements. All right, when we say one thing and then we say something else and both of those things are contradictory, somebody else might call us on that. And a square of opposition can help us prevent that from happening. So in this video, we're not going to have any graphics. It's just going to be me talking. Actually, me walking around and talking. When I was in undergraduate, that's the first level of college, undergraduate school, and then in graduate school, I found that I did some of my best thinking, even some of my best writing, when I was walking around campus. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a walk together and think through some things. I would encourage you to have your notes handy since there won't be any graphics. So make sure you've got the square of opposition and your charts of the relationships, contradiction, contrariety, subcontrariety, subimplication, and superimplication, because you want to take some notes on this. So let's take a walk together. So as we walk and talk today, I just kind of want to walk through some of my thoughts about one of my thoughts. I want to see if something that I think is really what I actually believe, and if it's really consistent logically. One of the things I think I believe is that the taking of a human life is wrong. For me, the idea of killing someone that takes away that person's opportunity ever to accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So I would say I'm against the taking of a human life. And we could phrase that as an E proposition, putting that into categorical form. So we could say no people are people who should be killed. Actually, go ahead and write that down, because we're going to want to analyze my thinking here. E proposition, no people are people who should be killed. Now, we want to take that and put that into the other forms, the other categorical propositions, so that we can run it through the square of opposition. So the A form of that would be all people are people who should be killed. Again, you're going to want to write each of these down. A, all people are people who should be killed. The I proposition, some people are people who should be killed. And then, of course, there's the O proposition, some people are not people who should be killed. Now let's see if this really holds up. Let's run it through the square of opposition and see what we can infer from my original E proposition. So according to contrariety, if my E proposition, no people are people who should be killed, if that's true, then the A proposition must be false. All people are people who should be killed, and indeed that is false. Right? I definitely do not believe that all people are people who should be killed. Now, by subimplication, the O proposition, some people are not people who should be killed, that must also be true. And indeed it is. All right? Take my wife and children. They are some people, right? That's a subset of the overall universal category of all people. And I certainly do not believe that those some people should be killed. I would never want to see my wife and children killed. But now consider the relationship of contradiction. If my E proposition is true, then the I proposition, some people are people who should be killed, must be false. And that actually gives me pause. Do I really believe that? That is false? Do I really disagree with that statement that some people are people who should be killed? What if I believe in a strong military? Right? What if I believe that a strong military is necessary to defend a country? Well, let's be honest, in war, there are people who are going to die. So now I need to go a little bit deeper. I need to really think through what I actually believe here. Maybe I've got an inconsistency. So let's start with my I proposition. Let's say I believe that some people are people who should be killed. By super implication, the A proposition could be either true or false, that all people are people who should be killed. And I believe it's false. So far so good. By subcontrariety, the O proposition, some people are not people who should be killed. That could also be either true or false. And again, as with the example of my wife and children, I would say that's true. So again, we're good. And then by contradiction, the E proposition, no people are people who should be killed, must be false. And if I'm holding to the I proposition, I would have to go ahead and accept that that is false. And so it would seem that by going through the square of opposition, I've refined my thought a little bit, and I realize that what I really hold to be true is the I proposition. Now that was a lot of thinking, but Socrates was right. It's important to examine our lives. And Jesus was right about that too. In Luke 14, Jesus said it's going to cost a lot to follow him. In fact, he gave a couple of examples. He talked about a man who wanted to build a tower. And he said, nobody's going to build a tower unless they first realize if they've got the money to finish the project. And he said it's the same thing with a king who wants to, say, go to war. He said he's going to evaluate the situation and decide whether or not he thinks he can win. And if he thinks he can't win, then he's going to try to make peace with the other side. What Jesus was saying there is we have to really think it through and understand what it means if we say we believe him and are going to follow him. Now take, for example, something he said in John 14:6. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And we use this in one of our other videos. What Jesus is practically saying is already in an E form of a categorical proposition. If we tweak that statement just a little bit, we get no people are people who can be saved apart from Jesus. Now, by sub-implication, the O proposition, some people are people who cannot be saved apart from Jesus. Well, that would obviously have to be true also, logically, and then it makes sense, right? If some people, that's a subset of the group of all the people, and if nobody can be saved apart from Jesus, obviously some could not either. And then we've got the relationship of the relationship of contrariety, which affects the A proposition. All people can be saved apart from Jesus. All right, that'd be something the atheist would say. Now, by the principle of contrariety, we know that that would be false. And I think most of you would probably agree, right? I would disagree with the atheist. What the atheist is saying is false. But once again, it's the relationship of contradiction that kind of puts us in a little bit of a position to think. See, by contradiction, the I proposition, well, that's got to be false. And the I proposition says that some people are people who can be saved apart from Jesus. And if you haven't yet, you will meet people who say exactly that. All right, they're going to point out people who are nice and who do good things, and maybe even people that you know. And they will say, well, surely those people can be saved even if they don't believe or follow Jesus. But as a Christian, logically speaking, you have to disagree with that. So I hope you've seen how the square of opposition can really help you think through your own thoughts, help you to examine what it is you actually believe, so that what you're saying you believe is consistent at all times. and that you don't embarrass yourself by making inconsistent or contradictory statements.